My father told me over dinner that my trust fund was going to my sister, so I told him exactly what I thought about his golden child. The ribeye on my plate cost $85. I knew because Dad always ordered the most expensive thing when he was about to deliver bad news. He'd done the same thing when he told me I wouldn't be valedictorian despite my 4.0 GPA. My sister Brianna needed it more for her Ivy League applications. Your trust fund vests next month, he said, cutting into his steak like he wasn't about to destroy my entire future. But there's been a change. I set down my fork. 23 years I'd waited. 23 years of being told that money, $2.8 million my grandmother left specifically for me, would be mine when I turned 25. What kind of change? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Brianna needs it for her medical practice. She's opening a clinic. My sister, the one who'd failed the boards twice, who needed Dad to make a donation just to get her into med school, who was currently on her third attempt at residency after washing out of the first two. That's my money, I said quietly. Grandma left it to me. My name is on the trust. Actually, Dad said, pulling out documents, I'm the trustee. I have discretionary power over distributions. I recognize the papers. The amendment he'd had me sign when I was 18, supposedly to extend the trust for tax purposes. I trusted him, like an idiot. You're stealing my inheritance for Brianna? Don't be dramatic. Your sister needs this opportunity. My sister, I said, my voice rising, is a 27-year-old failure who's never succeeded at anything without you buying her way. The restaurant went quiet. Dad's face turned purple. How dare you? How dare I tell the truth? Should we talk about how she really got through undergrad? About Professor Morrison? About the plagiarism scandal you paid to disappear? Lower your voice. Or how about the real reason she left her first residency? It wasn't stress. It was the attending she was having an affair with. His wife was pregnant. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Enough. You want to know what's enough? 23 years of watching you worship Brianna while treating me like furniture. I graduated summa cum laude, started my own business, never asked you for anything. And my reward is you stealing my inheritance for your precious princess who can't even— She's not my daughter. The words hung in the air like a bomb. My mother, who'd been silent until now, dropped her wine glass. It shattered on the floor, red wine spreading like blood. What? I whispered. Dad was staring at Brianna, who'd gone completely white. 28 years ago, your mother had an affair. Brianna isn't mine, but I raised her, loved her, gave her everything because I chose to be her father. His eyes moved to me, cold and calculating. You were just the obligation that came with the marriage. My whole world tilted. Everything made sense. The favoritism, the coldness, the way he looked at me like I was a stranger in my own home. So you're punishing me because, Mom, I'm taking care of my real family, he said. Brianna might not be my blood, but she's my choice. You're just your mother's mistake that I had to pretend to love. I looked at my mother. She was crying silently, not denying anything. Then I smiled. The kind of smile that made Dad lean back in his chair. You think you know everything, I said softly. But you're wrong about one thing. I'm not Mom's mistake. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo. His brother, my Uncle Raymond, from 26 years ago. I couldn't fit what happens next in this short video. Watch the rest down below. Dad's hand froze halfway to the phone. His face went from purple to white in seconds. That's impossible, he whispered. Is it? I asked. You were so busy tracking Mom's affair from 28 years ago, you never bothered to check what happened 26 years ago, when you were in Tokyo for 3 months. When Uncle Raymond stayed in our guest house to help Mom with the renovations. Brianna's mouth fell open. Mom stopped crying, staring at me in shock. You're lying, Dad said, but his voice cracked. Am I? Remember how you always said I had the Whitmore eyes? Your mother's eyes? Funny thing about genetics, I did a DNA test last year. Ancestry stuff, you know. But then I got curious about why my results showed such a strong match with someone named R. Whitmore. I pulled up the results on my phone. 50% match. That's not a cousin, Dad. That's a parent. The silence was deafening. Other diners were openly staring now, but I didn't care. When did you— Mom started. 6 months ago, I said. When you had that garden party and Dad made his little speech about family loyalty while announcing Brianna's third residency placement. The one he bought for $500,000. Dad was still staring at the DNA results. His hands were shaking. Uncle Raymond doesn't know, I continued, yet, but I have his number. His wife's too. Catherine, right? The one who just had their 4th kid? I wonder how she'd feel knowing her husband has another daughter. You vindictive little— Dad started. Vindictive, I laughed. You just told me I'm not your daughter. You just admitted you've been punishing me my whole life for Mom's affair. But here's the thing. Brianna isn't yours and neither am I. The only difference is you chose to love her. Brianna finally found her voice. You're doing this because of the trust fund? No, I said, standing up. I'm doing this because I'm sick of being treated like a ghost in my own family. Because I worked my entire life trying to earn love from a man who was never going to give it. Because you— I pointed at her— have failed at everything you've ever tried. But Dad keeps throwing money at you like you're made of gold. That's not fair. Fair? I pulled out a folder from my bag. Let's talk about fair. Here's every payment Dad's made for you in the last 10 years. $45,000 to make your DUI disappear. $200,000 to get you into med school after you scored in the 15th percentile on the MCAT. $75,000 to Professor Morrison to change your grades. $500,000 for each residency placement you've blown. I threw the papers on the table. That's $1.8 million, not including the cars, the apartment, the vacations. And now you want my trust fund too? Dad grabbed the papers. How did you— Your accountant's assistant, Bethany. Remember her? The one you fired last year because she made a clerical error? She kept copies of everything. Mom was sobbing now. Darling, please, don't, I said. You knew. You knew what Dad was doing to me, and you let it happen because you felt guilty about Brianna. Well, guess what? I was your child too. The waiter approached nervously. Is everything? We're leaving, Dad announced, throwing cash on the table. You can leave, I said, but I'm not done. I turned to Brianna. You want to know why you keep failing? It's not because you're stupid. It's because you've never had to succeed. Every time you fall, Dad catches you. Every time you fail, he buys you another chance. You're 27 years old and you've never had a job that Dad didn't arrange. I'm trying. No, you're not. You're playing doctor with Dad's money. And those patients you're going to treat at your clinic? They deserve better than someone who needed 3 attempts to pass basic boards. Dad stood up, his face venomous. We're done here. Yes, I said. We are. I picked up my bag and started to walk away, then stopped. Oh, and Dad? That amendment you had me sign? My lawyer says it's fraud. Trustee discretion doesn't extend to completely diverting funds to another beneficiary, especially when you misrepresented the document's purpose. See you in court. I left them sitting there, Mom crying, Brianna shocked, Dad looking like his world had imploded. The next morning, my phone had 47 missed calls. I ignored them all and drove to Uncle Raymond's office. He ran a successful construction company downtown, had built half the city's skyline. The receptionist recognized me immediately. He's in a meeting, but tell him it's about family, I said. He'll want to hear this. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Uncle Raymond. He looked so much like Dad, but warmer somehow. The kind of man who actually smiled when he saw you. What's this about? He asked, concerned. Your father said there was some drama at dinner last night. Did he tell you what kind of drama? Just that you were upset about some financial matter. I laughed. Is that what he called it? I told him everything. About the trust fund, about Brianna, about Dad's revelation. I watched his face change as I spoke, confusion giving way to understanding, then something else. Something that looked like recognition. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I always wondered, he said finally. You knew? Suspected? You started looking like my mother around age 10. Same nose, same way of tilting your head when you think. Your father noticed too. That's when he started pulling away from you. But you never said anything. What was I supposed to say? Accuse your mother without proof? Destroy my brother's marriage? Destroy you? So you just let Dad treat me like garbage? Raymond's face darkened. I didn't know it was that bad. He told me you were rebellious, difficult, that you rejected his attempts to connect. I was a straight A student. I never got in trouble. I spent my entire childhood trying to be perfect enough for him to love me. Jesus. He rubbed his face. I should have known. The way he talked about Brianna versus you, I thought it was just favorite child syndrome. It was worse than that. Raymond stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the city he'd helped build. Your mother and I, he started, then stopped. It was a mistake. Your father was gone for months, stressed about the Tokyo merger. Your mother was lonely. I was going through my own divorce. We were both drinking too much, and one night, I don't need the details. It only happened once. We agreed never to speak of it. When your mother found out she was pregnant, we both assumed it was your father's. The timing was close enough. But you wondered. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I saw you achieve something amazing and watched your father dismiss it. I stood up to leave, but Raymond stopped me. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I could take a DNA test, make it official. I thought about it. Would you want that? Your wife, your kids? Catherine knows, he said quietly. I told her years ago when we were in counseling. She said if you ever needed anything, to help you. That broke something in me. This man's wife, a stranger, had more compassion for me than my own parents. I'll think about it, I said. And the trust fund? I'm fighting for it. It's mine. Good. Your grandmother would be rolling in her grave if she knew what your father was trying to pull. He pulled out his checkbook. In the meantime? No, I said. I'm not taking money from you. It's not charity. It's 26 years of missed birthday presents. I almost laughed. That's a lot of presents. Then let me start with this. I have a friend, Judge Coleman. He specializes in trust litigation. Your father doesn't know they're friends. I'll make a call. Over the next week, my life exploded. Dad tried to freeze my credit cards, the ones he paid for. I'd anticipated that and had already withdrawn cash. He called my employer, trying to get me fired. My boss, who'd been screwed over by Dad in a business deal years ago, gave me a raise instead. Brianna showed up at my apartment, crying. You ruined everything, she said, mascara streaming down her face. The hospital withdrew their residency offer. They said there were inconsistencies in my application. You mean lies? I needed this chance. No, you wanted it. There's a difference. You've had every chance in the world, Brianna. You just kept failing. Because I'm not smart like you. You're not stupid. You're lazy. You've never had to work for anything because Dad always saved you. She glared at me through her tears. At least he loved me. Did he? Or did he love the idea of you? The daughter he chose versus the one he was stuck with? That made her pause. Think about it, I continued. Has Dad ever loved you for who you are? Or does he love that you need him, that you're helpless without him? You're not his daughter. You're his project. That's not... When's the last time he asked about your dreams? Your actual dreams? Not the ones he planned for you? She opened her mouth, then closed it. I never wanted to be a doctor, she admitted quietly. I wanted to be a teacher, elementary school. But Dad said it wasn't prestigious enough. So you spent 7 years failing at medical school instead. He said I just needed to try harder. And how's that working out? She sank onto my couch. I don't know how to do anything else. I don't know how to be anything else. You're 27. You could learn. With what money? Dad cut me off too. He says it's my fault you found out about everything. I sat down next to her. For the first time in our lives, we were in the same position. You know what the sick part is? I said. If he'd just loved us both equally, none of this would have happened. He did love. No, he controlled you and ignored me. That's not love. We sat in silence for a while. Then Brianna asked, "What are you going to do about Uncle Raymond?" "I don't know. Does he want to be your father?" "I think he wants to make up for lost time." "That must be nice," she said bitterly. "Having someone who actually wants you. You have Mom. Mom hasn't looked at me the same since dinner. Like I'm evidence of her betrayal or something. Join the club." That's how Dad's looked at me my whole life. My phone buzzed. An email from Judge Coleman's office. The emergency injunction had been granted. Dad couldn't touch the trust fund until the court hearing. "I should go," Brianna said, standing up. "Where?" "I don't know. Maybe I'll figure out how to be a real person." After she left, I called my grandmother's estate lawyer. He'd been retired for 5 years, but he remembered me. "I always wondered when this call would come," he said. "You knew? Your grandmother suspected your father would try something. That's why she structured the trust the way she did. She also left a sealed letter with me to be opened if there was ever a dispute." "What does it say?" "I'll bring it to court. But I can tell you this. Your grandmother was a smart woman. She knew exactly who her son was." The court hearing was set for 3 weeks later. Dad hired the most expensive legal team in the city. I had Judge Coleman's recommendation and my grandmother's letter. The night before the hearing, Mom called. "I need to see you," she said. We met at a coffee shop. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "For everything. For the affair. For letting your father treat you that way. For being a coward. Why didn't you ever stand up for me?" "Because I was guilty. I thought if I advocated for you, your father would know. Would see Raymond in your face the way I did. So you sacrificed me to keep your secret." "Yes," she said simply. "And I'll regret it for the rest of my life." "What about Brianna?" "Brianna's father was a mistake. A colleague who left the country before I even knew I was pregnant. Your father agreed to raise her as his own if I never contacted him again. But why did he favor her?" "Because choosing to love her made him feel like a better man than he was. And punishing you for my affair with his brother made him feel justified in his cruelty. That's sick. Your father is a sick man. I just took 28 years to see it. Are you leaving him?" "The divorce papers were filed yesterday." "What will you do?" "I don't know. Start over maybe. Try to be the mother I should have been." "It's too late for that." "I know." She pulled out an envelope. "This is my grandmother's jewelry. The pieces your father didn't know about. They're worth about $200,000. They're yours. I don't want— Please, let me do this one thing right." I took the envelope. The day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Apparently, Dad had tried to keep it quiet. But someone, definitely not me, had leaked it to the business journals. The fall of William Whitmore was too juicy to ignore. Dad sat with his legal team, looking confident. He'd always won in court before. Brianna sat in the back, alone. Mom sat on my side. Uncle Raymond sat behind me with Catherine. Judge Harrison, not Coleman, who'd recused himself, reviewed the case. "This is a matter of trustee discretion versus beneficiary rights," she began. "Mr. Whitmore, you claim the discretion to redirect trust funds for the family's benefit. Ms. Whitmore, you claim this constitutes fraud." Dad's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, the trust document clearly states—" "I've read the document," Judge Harrison interrupted. "I've also read the amendment Ms. Whitmore signed at 18. Mr. Whitmore, did you inform your daughter that this amendment would allow you to divert her entire inheritance?" "The amendment was for tax purposes." "That's not what I asked. Did you inform her of all possible implications?" Dad hesitated. "The language was clear. The language was deliberately obscured," my lawyer interrupted. "We have an affidavit from the attorney who drafted it stating Mr. Whitmore specifically requested complex language to hide the true purpose." Dad's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed it. Then came my grandmother's letter. The judge opened it and read it silently. Her eyebrows rose higher with each line. "Mr. Whitmore," she said finally, "your mother's letter is quite explicit. She states, and I quote, 'This trust is for my granddaughter alone. I fear my son's resentment toward her will lead him to financial manipulation. If you are reading this, he has proven me right. Do not let him steal her future as he has stolen her childhood.'" The courtroom was silent. She goes on to detail specific instances of emotional neglect and favoritism she witnessed. She also states she has video recordings of you explicitly promising the trust would remain untouched. "Those recordings don't exist," Dad started. "Actually, they do," I said, pulling out a USB drive. "Grandma gave them to me before she died. I thought they were just family videos. Turns out she was documenting everything." The judge reviewed the videos on her laptop. Dad promising me at age 10 that the money would be mine. At 15, telling me to work hard because I'd have my trust fund to start my own business. At 18, assuring me the amendment was just paperwork. "Mr. Whitmore," the judge said coldly, "this is clear fraud. You deliberately misrepresented your intentions for years. The trust fund remains with Ms. Whitmore. Furthermore, you're removed as trustee effective immediately." "Your Honor, I'm not finished. You will also pay Ms. Whitmore's legal fees and damages for emotional distress and financial manipulation." Dad's face went purple. "This is ridiculous." "No, Mr. Whitmore. What's ridiculous is a father stealing from his own child out of spite." Case dismissed. As people filed out, Dad approached me. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "I think I've finally seen you for what you are," I replied. "A small, bitter man who punished a child for existing. You're not my child." "No," I said. "I'm not. Thank God." Raymond stepped forward. "Actually, she is my child. And if you ever come near her again, I'll destroy you. And unlike you, I actually have the means to do it." Dad looked between us, then laughed bitterly. "The two of you deserve each other." "Yes," Raymond said. "We do." After Dad left, Brianna approached me. "Congratulations," she said, but there was no bitterness in it. "Thanks. I enrolled in a teaching program," she said. "Community college. I'm starting over." "Good for you. I'm also in therapy." trying to figure out who I am without Dad. How's that going? It's hard, but also freeing. For the first time, my failures are my own, and so are my successes. That's all anyone really wants. She hugged me, the first real hug we'd ever shared. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything, for being the favorite, for taking advantage of it, for not seeing how much it hurt you. We were both kids, I said. We didn't choose our roles. No, but I chose to play mine for too long. After she left, Raymond and Catherine. So, Catherine smiling. We were thinking about family Sunday. I don't want to complicate our kid, Raymond corrected. You have 4 half-siblings who are dying to meet their big sister. They know? We told them last week, Catherine said. Our oldest, Theo, immediately asked if you could teach him how to be cool. Apparently, he saw your business featured in that magazine article. I laughed, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Wanted. 6 months later, my life looked completely different. The trust fund had been transferred to my control. I used part of it to expand my business, hiring employees who, like me, had been overlooked and underestimated. I had Sunday dinners with Raymond's family. My half-siblings were amazing, loud, chaotic, and completely accepting. Theo followed me around like a puppy. The twins taught me their secret handshake. Baby Lucy called me Sissy and demanded I carry her everywhere. Brianna and I had lunch once a month. She was thriving in her teaching program, working part-time at a daycare. She'd never looked happier. Mom and I were slowly rebuilding. She'd gotten her own apartment, started therapy, and was learning to be alone for the first time in her life. Dad remarried within 3 months, a young woman who looked eerily like Mom had 20 years ago. I heard through the grapevine that she was already pregnant. I felt sorry for that child. One evening, I was working late when Raymond stopped by my office. You know, he said, looking around at what I'd built. Your grandmother would be proud. You think? I know. She always said you were special, that you had something Brianna didn't. What's that? Resilience. The ability to bloom even when planted in concrete. Dad tried pretty hard to keep me from blooming, but he failed, and that's what kills him. He spent 26 years trying to break you, and you just kept getting stronger. I had to. I didn't have another choice. You had choices. You could have become bitter like him. You could have given up. You could have accepted the scraps he offered. Instead, you fought for what was yours. It wasn't just about the money. No, he agreed. It was about proving you deserved to exist, that you had value despite what he said. Do you ever regret it? That night with Mom? I regret the betrayal. I regret the pain it caused. But I don't regret you. I couldn't. Even though I complicated everything. The best things in life are complicated. Simple is overrated. A year after the court case, I received a call from a hospital. Dad had suffered a heart attack. He was asking for me. I almost didn't go, but something made me drive to the hospital at 2 a.m. He looked small in the hospital bed. Old. Fragile. You came, he wheezed. You're still legally my father. Not by blood. No, by choice. You chose to raise me. You chose to be cruel. You chose to favor Brianna. Those were all choices. I was angry. You were wrong. About all of it. I wasn't Mom's mistake. I was a child. You're a child, legally and morally, and you failed me. I know. That stopped me cold. I've been thinking, he continued, lying here, possibly dying, about the choices I made, the man I became. And I became my father. Cold, harsh, punishing, except he had a reason. He was raised during the Depression. He knew actual hardship. I was just bitter. Why tell me this? Because I need you to know it wasn't about you. It was never about you. You were just there, a reminder of everything I couldn't control. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, nothing I say will make it better. But I wanted you to know, you were the best thing in our family, the only one who succeeded without help, the only one who became something real. Brianna's becoming something real too, because you freed her, from me. He coughed, wincing. I destroyed everything I touched, except you. You were too strong. I wasn't strong, I was desperate. Same thing sometimes. A nurse came in to check his monitors. When she left, he said, I changed my will. I don't want your money. Not money. The house. Your grandmother's house. The one she grew up in. I've been renting it out, but it's yours. She'd want you to have it. Why? Because it's the only thing I haven't ruined, and maybe you can make it something good again. He survived the heart attack, but never fully recovered. He lived another 6 months, alone, except for the new wife who left him the moment his money ran out. Turned out he'd been leveraging everything for bad investments. Brianna and I went to his funeral together. The church was nearly empty. A few business associates, some distant relatives. Mom didn't come. Raymond stood in the back, there for me, not him. The priest talked about forgiveness and redemption, about complicated families and second chances. I thought about the little girl who'd spent years trying to earn her father's love, the teenager who'd cried herself to sleep wondering what she'd done wrong, the young woman who'd had to fight for what was rightfully hers. And then I thought about who I'd become, not in spite of him, but because of him. His cruelty had forged my strength. His neglect had taught me self-reliance. His favoritism had shown me the importance of earning things for myself. I wasn't grateful for the pain, but I was grateful for the person it had shaped me into. After the service, Brianna and I stood at his grave. Do you forgive him? She asked. No, but I understand him. He was a small man who needed to feel big. He could only do that by making others feel small. I feel small, she admitted. Without him propping me up, I'm nobody. You're not nobody. You're just not somebody yet. There's a difference. What if I fail? Then you fail as yourself, not as his puppet. That's worth something. We left together, 2 sisters finally free from the man who'd pitted us against each other our entire lives. I moved into my grandmother's house and found her journals in the attic. Page after page of observations about Dad's treatment of me, her plans to protect me, her regrets about not intervening more directly. One entry stood out. My granddaughter has her father's intelligence but not his cruelty. She has her mother's beauty but not her weakness. She has Raymond's kindness but not his guilt. She is the best of all of them, and they can't see it, but she will become something extraordinary, not because of them, but in spite of them. This I know. I sat in her old rocking chair, crying for the grandmother who'd seen me when no one else had. That night, Raymond's family came for dinner in my grandmother's house. The table that had hosted so many cold, formal meals with Dad now rang with laughter. Theo argued about video games with the twins. Lucy finger-painted on newspapers I'd spread on the floor. Catherine helped me cook while Raymond fixed the leaky faucet Dad had never bothered with. This feels right, Catherine said, watching the chaos. This house needed this. It needed family, I agreed. Real family. That's what we are, she said simply. Real family, the kind you choose. Mom arrived late, nervous about intruding, but Lucy ran to her immediately, demanding to be picked up, and suddenly Mom was laughing, looking lighter than she had in years. Brianna came last, straight from her student teaching. She was covered in glitter and finger paint, looking exhausted but happy. How was it? I asked. Perfect, she said. Chaotic and messy, and absolutely perfect. One kid told me I was the best teacher ever because I let them use the good crayons. The good crayons are important. Who knew? She looked around the full house. This is different from Dad's dinners. No assigned seating, I said. No rehearsed conversations. No judgment. No fear, she added quietly. We ate spaghetti and garlic bread. Nothing fancy. Nothing to impress anyone. Theo got sauce on his shirt. The twins started a food fight that Catherine shut down with just a look. Lucy fell asleep in her high chair, face covered in parmesan. A toast, Raymond said, raising his beer. To second chances. To chosen family, Catherine added. To freedom, Brianna said. To Grandma, I said, who saw all of this coming. We clinked glasses, even the twins with their juice boxes. Later, after everyone had gone home, I sat on the porch of my grandmother's house. My house now. The trust fund money was safely invested. My business was thriving, and for the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who actually wanted me around. Dad had been wrong about everything. I wasn't a mistake or an obligation. I wasn't worthless without his approval. I wasn't destined to be alone because I didn't have his love. I was exactly who my grandmother knew I could be. Someone who refused to let bitterness win, who built something beautiful from broken pieces, who chose love over resentment even when I had every reason to choose otherwise. My phone buzzed. A text from Theo. Thanks for dinner, coolest sister ever. Can you teach me coding next week? Then Brianna. My kids loved the art project I stole from tonight. You're a genius with finger paint. Then Mom. Thank you for letting me be part of this. I love you. And finally, Raymond. Your grandmother would be so proud. I know I am. I thought about responding, then decided to just sit and enjoy the moment. The quiet evening, the old house finally filled with laughter, the knowledge that the worst was behind me. Dad had tried to erase me from the family narrative, to write me out of my own story, but I'd written my own ending instead. One where the forgotten daughter became the foundation, where the rejected child became the one everyone turned to, where the girl who wasn't loved enough learned to love anyway. It wasn't the life I'd planned at that dinner where Dad told me about the trust fund. It was better, because this life was entirely mine. Earned, built, chosen. Every single piece of it was real. The next morning, I found one last letter from my grandmother, hidden in a recipe box. Written just days before she died. My dearest granddaughter, if you're reading this, you found your way home. Not just to this house, but to yourself. Your father will try to break you. He already has, hasn't he? But you are unbreakable. Not because you're strong, but because you know how to bend without losing your shape. The money I left you isn't really about money. It's about freedom. The freedom to choose your own path, to build your own family, to become who you are meant to be without his shadow. Use it wisely. Love freely. And remember, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's happiness. Be happy, my dear one. Be so happy it burns. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my wallet, carrying her words with me. That afternoon, I had a meeting with